Randy's recommendations for a cheap DIY beginner Western hunt.
I always say pronghorn. Pronghorn is the gateway drug to Western hunting. And the reason that is tags are easier to draw, especially if you're an archer. But there's a lot of things that you have to do to execute a pronghorn hunt that applies to mule deer, that applies to elk. You have to learn how to read maps. You're going to all of a sudden have this public land, private land, what's Forest Service, what's BLM. You're going to have that. You're going to have to learn how to understand out-of-state regulations. If you're lucky and you're successful, you're going to have to learn meat care out in the field. You might have to pack that thing out in quarters. You are going to have to figure out meat care, how to get that meat home without it spoiling. So the number of things that you have to do to pull off a pronghorn hunt is there. Most of those items are also on a checklist for a Western do-it-yourself elk hunt.
What do you
So
think? What do you think? Let's say I draw a Montana antelope tag, and I live back east.
yep.
Like, if I did it fairly wisely financially, what's that going to cost me in total? Like, what should I plan on?
I've done this before. I did it for Bugle Magazine, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. I think it was 2014. I called it the $1,200 elk hunt. And now, tag prices have increased, gas prices have increased. So
Yeah.
I think you could still do if you and three buddies I think in the example I said you're in Pennsylvania and you guys drove out and you took turns and you didn't sleep in, fancy hotels. You didn't eat in restaurants for 3 meals a day. You packed some lunches and meals when you left and you just, made it on the road and you processed your own game. You could easily do that pronghorn hunt, you and three buddies, for $2,000 or less each of you,
And
even
then
with gas prices today.
for the people that have never done this before, one of the questions that
Mm,
I always get, Randy, is what do I do with the meat? Like, obviously, if you
mm,
drive out there, you
yep,
you can drive it home, but a lot of people fly
right.
and
So
rent a truck or something.
right, if you fly, that's gonna crank that price way up there. You're gonna have airline costs. You're probably gonna have meat processing costs. You're gonna have shipment costs for getting that meat home.
So you're saying
So
drop it off at a local butcher and have them ship it?
that's what most people do when they fly. At least if it's an animal as big as an elk, obviously. I mean, you
Right.
can't. Uh, if you were doing a pronghorn, you could probably at least bone it out, get it froze with some dry ice the day before you fly out, keep it in your good Yeti cooler, and one cooler. You'd have to pay extra weight because an antelope in a Yeti cooler is going to be over the 70-pound limit or 50-pound limit or whatever it is. But that would be one way to fly. But if you want to keep your costs down, you're probably best to do it with a group of hunting friends and drive and process your own meat, all that stuff. But if if you're flying, all of a sudden you just have cranked up your costs significantly because you're renting a vehicle, you're staying in a hotel probably the night before. You can't probably fly all your camp gear, so maybe you're staying in hotels the whole time of the trip. So it's probably more comfortable, more flexible, but
Right.
it's going to add a lot of cost.
So what's the second? So pronghorn's number one. What would be your second choice?
Mule deer.
Yeah.
Again, mule deer tags are easier to draw than elk tags, and same kind of thing. In fact, you're probably gonna, since a lot of the mule deer live in the more mountainous terrain like elk do, you're probably gonna learn a lot of things about mountain, altitude, hunting and elevation, crazy weather in the mountains, needing good boots, a good pack. So either of those would be a great gateway drug to the Western do-it-yourself elk hunt.
Yeah.
And
That's
if you
good
just
stuff.
want to dive right into the deep end of the pool, hey, go on and do it yourself elk hunt.